At the funeral, no one hugged me. I stood near the back while she wept at the front. My sister flawless in black tears streaming down a face that always knew when to perform. She held hands, she leaned into shoulders. She said things like, "I don't know how we'll go on," and "It's just so sudden," even though it wasn't sudden at all. Mom had been fading for months. I knew every stage. I was the one who scheduled appointments, managed medications, changed sheets at midnight. She sent flowers. She posted tributes. I held the oxygen mask while Mom tried to say goodbye. My sister held the spotlight. When people looked at me, their eyes didn't hold comfort. They held distance, uncertainty, like they'd heard something they couldn't quite say out loud. I knew what she had told them, that I had been distant, that I hadn't come around enough, that I was always tense with Mom, that she had tried so hard to reconnect with me, but I always made it difficult. They believed her. Of course they did. She cried prettier, smiled more. And I didn't fight the story. I didn't defend myself. I just stood in the kitchen after the service rinsing wine glasses that no one thanked me for and listened to her laugh with my cousin like we were all in some warm family movie. But it wasn't a movie. It was real. And I was the character everyone thought had ruined the third act. I stayed late to clean. I always did. The house was quiet by then. The guests gone. My sister had driven off with 2 trays of leftovers and her perfect grief. I moved from room to room with slow steps touching surfaces like they still remembered Mom's hands. That's when I found it. In the bottom drawer of Mom's nightstand, tucked behind expired coupons and a broken wristwatch. A soft brown notebook with frayed corners. No lock, no ribbon. Just her name written on the first page in the same handwriting she used to sign my field trip slips. I almost put it back, almost told myself it was too private, but something in my chest said no, not tonight. I opened to the first page, then the second, and by the 5th, I was sitting on the edge of the bed reading the story of my life, written by the only person who ever knew it. Not the story she told, the story I lived. Mom had written about everything, about the way my sister used to lie to cover her own cruelty, about the time she blamed me for taking the bracelet that she herself had sold to buy concert tickets, about how Mom had scolded me in public just to keep the peace, about how she regretted it. She wrote about my silence, about how it scared her. Not because it was cold, but because it was too heavy for someone so young. She wrote, "I wish I had protected her more. I let her carry things that weren't hers, and I never took them back." My hands trembled as I read page after page, not because they hurt, but because they healed. Each word was a hand reaching from the past saying, "I saw you. I knew you were telling the truth. I just didn't say it loud enough." I closed the diary just as the clock struck midnight. The house around me didn't feel so cold anymore. And for the first time since Mom died, I felt something more than grief. I felt clarity. My sister had the crowd, but I had Mom's voice. And in the end, that was the one that mattered. She was always the one they listened to first, at dinner tables, in the car, during family vacations. Her stories were always funnier, her feelings more urgent. I would start to speak, and someone would interrupt, and somehow the moment would pass like I had never opened my mouth. She was older by 3 years, but acted as if that made her royalty. I was the afterthought, the one who got her old clothes and her old piano books and the bike that she no longer wanted to ride. When I did something right, it was expected. When she did something right, it was celebrated. When I cried, I was dramatic. When she cried, it was sensitive. When I disappeared into my room for hours to write or draw or just not be seen, I was moody. When she did it, she was creative. I learned early that silence was safer than resentment. So I got good at it. I became the helpful one, the polite one, the one who stayed behind after birthdays to wash the dishes and took notes when Mom had doctor's appointments. My sister would flit through the room with perfume and laughter and leave a trail of stories behind her. Most of them not true. Some of them about me. I didn't correct her. At first, because I didn't know how. Later, because I didn't think anyone would care. And then one day, I realized she had become the version of me that everyone recognized. I was the shadow cast by her spotlight. When we got older, it only got worse. She was the daughter who brought wine to dinner and sat beside Mom and asked about old recipes. I was the one who fixed the curtains and helped Mom pay bills. But she posted the pictures. She got the comments and the likes. She said things like, "I wish I could do more," and then left early. And when things got bad with Mom's health, she was suddenly very present, but only in public. At the hospital, she brought balloons. I brought medication lists. She posed beside Mom in the chair. I cleaned up when Mom had an accident in the bed. But no one saw that. No one took pictures of that. And when Mom passed, she cried loudest, took the microphone at the service, told stories about baking cookies and watching old movies together, said they were best friends. I watched from the third row as people nodded and smiled and believed her. Because that's what they had always done. Believed her. Even when she twisted things, even when she softened her own wrongs and sharpened mine. Even when she told them that I moved away because I was selfish, not because I had to survive. Even when she told them that Mom and I didn't get along, which was a lie so smooth, I started to doubt my own memories. That night, with the diary in my lap, I saw it clearly. Page after page of Mom's voice rising through the silence she had kept when we were growing up. She wrote about my sister's manipulations, about her talent for making others feel sorry for her while quietly hurting the ones closest to her. She wrote about how she had seen it and had not spoken out loud because she didn't want to cause a break between us. She hoped we would grow closer. She hoped my sister would grow kinder. She wrote I should have said something. I should have told people how much she carried alone. She meant me. And as I sat in that room reading those words, I didn't feel vindicated. I felt something heavier, not anger, not relief, but grief for all the times I could have spoken but didn't. All the moments I could have pushed back but chose peace instead. I realized I had allowed the distance because I thought silence was maturity. But silence had become permission, and she had taken every inch of that silence and built her version of me inside it. But now I had this. Mom's words, her truth, my truth, written in ink that no one could erase. I didn't know what I would do with it yet, but for the first time in years I felt like I could breathe in my own name without apology. I didn't send the whole diary. I didn't need to. Just 10 pages, photocopied, unmarked. No commentary, no explanation. Just a brown envelope placed gently into the mailbox of each relative who had hugged her at the funeral, but looked through me like I wasn't part of the same blood. I didn't expect a reaction, not right away. I had lived with the silence for too long to believe in quick justice, but still I waited. Quietly, the first response came from my cousin, a text at 10:13 p.m. Just read it. I had no idea. I replied with 2 words. I know. The second came 2 days later. A voicemail from my uncle who had stopped inviting me to Christmas 3 years ago. His voice shook. She made us think you didn't care, he said. I'm sorry. We were wrong. I didn't call back. I didn't need to. The words weren't for conversation. They were acknowledgments. The diary had done what I never could. It spoke in a voice they remembered. Mom's. And when she said I should have protected her more, it cut through their version of me like a bell in fog. Some didn't respond. Some probably threw it away. But others began to shift. The next time my sister posted a picture of Mom online, there were fewer likes. A few comments disappeared. One aunt wrote a simple line under the post. Wished she could tell her story herself. My sister deleted it, then posted again the next day with a photo of Mom and a quote about forgiveness. But the tone was different, defensive, measured, like she wasn't sure what people still believed. I didn't react. I kept reading, page by page. Mom had written about our family in unflinching detail. She never meant it for others to see. But in every line there was clarity. I understood why she had never confronted my sister. She loved her, even with all the damage. But love and silence had cost me too much, and now I was done paying. I took a copy of the birth certificate that listed me as the emergency contact, the prescription logs with my handwriting in the margins. The receipts for every grocery run and utility bill I'd paid since moving back. I scanned them, saved them, not for court, for memory, my own. Because when someone rewrites your place in the family long enough, you begin to wonder if you imagined it all. I needed to remember the truth too, for myself. One afternoon, I walked into the living room, where the last of Mom's things were packed into boxes. My sister had left instructions to keep or toss what made sense. I found a folder marked Photos. I opened it. Inside were snapshots of childhood, my sister's birthday parties, her ballet recitals, her with ribbons, her with trophies. And in the back, one photo of me, alone in a chair, a cake in front of me with one candle. No one else in the frame, no one holding me, just me. And behind the photo, in Mom's handwriting, 3 words: she deserved better. I sat down on the floor and cried for the first time since Mom died. Not because it was too late, but because it wasn't. Not entirely. The truth had a pulse, and it was starting to reach people who once turned away. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want apologies. I just wanted to stop being invisible in a story that was mine too. And the diary had given me that, without raising my voice, without pointing fingers, just by existing, just by being read. The room was too quiet for what it used to be. It was the same living room where birthdays were once loud and holidays were chaotic, and music was always playing from some forgotten speaker in the corner. But today, no one smiled. My sister sat near the front legs, crossed hair-perfect black folder on her lap. I stood near the side window. I wasn't late. I just didn't enter the way she did. The lawyer opened his case. Thank you all for being here. As you know, we're here to review Eleanor's final wishes. I looked at the faces gathered. Most of them had read what I sent. I could tell not by their words, but by the way they avoided hers. She didn't notice at first. She greeted people with her usual warmth, touched elbows, whispered shared memories. But no one leaned in. And then the lawyer began. He spoke of the will, the accounts, the modest life insurance. And then he opened a small envelope. Eleanor left a handwritten addendum, not legally binding, but personal, requested to be read aloud. My sister shifted. That wasn't part of the version she planned. The lawyer cleared his throat. To both my daughters, I hope you are kind to each other, but in case kindness falls away, let truth remain. I want it known that I see you, both of you, but some truths never left my heart. My younger daughter has carried weight I should have lifted. She stood quietly when it would have been easier to scream, and I regret not saying it sooner. She did not pull away. She was pushed. She did not forget me. She forgave me. And to the one who has always needed the room, I hope you learn that love is not control, that being heard is not the same as being right. There were no names, but everyone knew. The lawyer folded the paper. Silence stretched. My sister blinked, then laughed softly. That's very poetic, she said. But I don't think we need to make today emotional. My cousin looked at her. It's already emotional. My aunt added, she wrote that for a reason. And just like that, the center of the room shifted. My sister tried to smile, but it didn't hold. She tried to speak, but no one nodded. The lawyer continued, the house will remain in the family jointly owned, unless one party chooses to sell. He looked at me. Eleanor listed you as primary caretaker for the final 6 months. Receipts support that. Therefore, if you choose to reside there, the estate covers your portion for 1 year. My sister opened her mouth to protest, but the lawyer raised his hand. This was her arrangement, not mine. Talk to her if you have a complaint, but she isn't here. My sister sat back, her folder closed, her hands still. She didn't look at me, not once. I didn't gloat. I didn't speak. I just waited until the papers were signed, until the meeting ended, until the room emptied. And then, as I stood alone in the space where Mom once poured tea and hummed old songs, I exhaled something that had been trapped for years. I wasn't invisible anymore, not because I forced anyone to see me, but because Mom finally had. It came 2 weeks later. No return address, just my name in handwriting I hadn't seen in years. Not Mom's, hers. Inside was one sheet of paper, No greeting, no signature, just a few lines. You were never the one who left. I just needed them to believe you did, so I could stay loved. I thought if I kept the room full, I'd never have to sit in silence with myself. But now the room is quiet, and I finally hear it. I was never the favorite, just the loudest. I folded the page once, then again. I didn't cry. There was nothing left in me that needed her to say sorry, but something about her writing that line, "I was never the favorite," felt like the only honest thing she'd said in years. And that made me ache, not for her, but for us, for who we could have been. I placed the letter in the same drawer that held Mom's diary, the same drawer that no longer needed to prove anything. Later that day, I walked through the house. The floor creaked the same. The kitchen still held the smell of tea and cinnamon, but something had changed. I wasn't a visitor in my own story anymore. I was home, and when I stood in front of the mirror in the hallway and saw my face just mine, I finally believed it. Not because someone told me I belonged, but because this time no one could say I didn't.